Hey guys, we're teaching you 2 lessons in economics, Blimey Cow style. So, what's Blimey Cow style? It's basically just a dude standing here ranting at your face for 5 minutes. Except we're doing it for 10. So guys, there are basically two types of people when it comes to the economy and the environment. Tree huggers and greedy industrialists. In fancy words, environmentalists versus business interests. But there are a few people who think we can find a happy medium. We're going to try to figure out what that looks like. So I'm titling this lesson, How to Find, if it's even possible, a happy medium between a greedy business guy and a hippie dude. So, how can economic output be increased without hurting the environment? And how can environmental protection be improved without hurting the economy? The economy being affected by the environment might look a bit like this. Joey, the farmer here, sprays pesticides on all his crops to keep the bugs from eating them, right? Okay, so when Joey sprays the pesticides on his crops, he benefits from the higher quantities and better quality of his veggies. So higher quantities might bring additional revenue that could be put to a good cause, like kids' education or starving kids somewhere.
Bobby, your dad and I don't have enough money to send you to school. I'm sorry.
Got some extra cash if you want it.
Never mind! You can go after all!
And that all sounds great, but it comes with a price. The consumers are now slowly being poisoned. Until one day... Wait, if bugs eat this stuff, their faces melt off and they die. Let's put it in our food. Whereas, if Joey hadn't sprayed the pesticides, a good percentage of his crops would have been eaten by the bugs, and we wouldn't have that extra revenue. But, we wouldn't be poisoning ourselves and the population might not have so many diseases. Is this making sense? Are you guys getting this? Riley! Focus! So, where's the happy medium? Well, let's talk about pollution. We need to provide energy and handle waste in ways that don't hurt people, because it's bad for you. We need to provide energy in ways that help the economy, but don't hurt people. The ideal way to control pollution is for industries to regulate themselves.
Regulation.
But, unfortunately, this rarely happens. Another solution for carbon emission would be for the government to enact a tax on those emissions, to be paid by the producers. So, if you don't want to have to pay so much, clean up your waste, or switch to a non-carbon producing energy source. Paying the tax, lowering emissions, or switching to a different energy source would increase the cost of production, which would increase the price of the product to the consumer. The market forces of price, profit, and competition would encourage producers to cut emissions as economically as possible. Then consumers could choose to buy less carbon-intensive products. The government could use that revenue generated by the tax to lower other taxes, pay down debt, or provide needed services, like education.
So, Bobby, we ran out of money, so we have to pull you out of school. Bobby, the government just said they're giving us money for your education. You can go back.
Okay, so maybe the government funding kids' education isn't the best idea, but they could put the money to another cause, like starving kids in Africa. Here, you want some food? You can't have it. A lot of taxpayers' dollars going into starving kids in Africa. What? No! The money isn't going into starving the kids in Africa. It's going into helping the starving kids in Africa. I guess I should have specified. That was totally inappropriate. So, basically, that's the closest you can get to a happy medium. It's all really complex, and we're basically doomed. Yeah, I didn't mean it. I just had a thought. The whole tax idea was going great, but politicians don't usually come out in favor of increasing taxes.
I'll increase your taxes 20%.
I will increase them 30%.
I'll increase them 30%.
So one step away from imposing a tax is the cap and trade idea. So basically, that's where the government puts a cap on the overall carbon emissions and issues permits that companies buy at auction, which allows companies to produce a certain amount of carbon above their initial allotment. But that still means more production costs, which means you pay more, which means less Oreos for snacking on. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand on up there. John Mark, I know you have a question. Go ahead and get your hand up. Who are you kidding? It's a video. I can't hear you. I can't. I don't know what you're trying to do. You're trying to communicate. So the cap and trade idea sounds like it would work, but in reality, it would just end up in politicians bribing companies to do what they want. You want Exxon, don't you?
Yes.
I'm running in the 2016 presidential election, and I'd like to see if you would publicly support me.
No.
I'll give you a free emissions permit.
Okay.
So, to wrap this lesson up, the United States can be a leader in environmental issues, but our economy will fare better on a world-level playing field where all national economies have to work towards better environmental protection. And finally, Christians should be leaders in protecting the environment. We cannot be deafened by the cries of businesses to the danger of environmental damage. Nor should we be turned away from the issues by secularists and those who exalt nature as a goddess. The earth is not a god, but caring for it is a stewardship that God has given to his people. Alright, let's jump right into agriculture and the economy. Back in the 17th century, big family farms were the norm. If you didn't have a farm, you were looked down upon as poor or unsuccessful. You don't have a farm?
Well, no, my parents didn't have enough money, so...
You're a loser.
You're the one with the straw hat and your belly button showing.
Whereas nowadays, if you have a farm, people might look at you like you've gone off the deep end.
You're a farmer? What a weirdo! What's your name, Farmer Joe?
It's actually Joey. And I'm not a weirdo. So, this lesson is titled, Learning About Farmer Guys Who Were Doing Good and Then They Weren't, so the government decided to give them money just like everything else in this crooked nation. So, families relied heavily on slaves for their workforce. In 1860, the nation had around 2 million farms, and agricultural products made up 82% of American exports. Most of the exports were cotton, grown in the South. But then, things started changing for the farmers of America. The Civil War left the northern farmers better off, and they prospered. But the southern agriculture took several years to recover from the devastations of the war. After that, agriculture suffered frequently. Prices rose and fell, and many farmers went into debt. This became even worse in the 1920s as prices declined and farming as a whole went into an economic depression. I know that's a mouthful, so let me sum it up for you. There are farmers here. They're all doing great till the war comes. The northern dudes suffer and the southern dudes do good. Wait, no, sorry. The northern farmers prospered and the southern ones suffered. So they're in that state for a while until the 1920s. Then business increased and decreased, sending everyone on a roller coaster ride. At that point, everyone was in a free fall for bankruptcy. So when the farmers were all down in the dumps, the government came along and started handing them money so they could get back on their feet. The government also put crop restrictions into place, which limited the number of acres in production so that decreased supply would increase demand and prices. So now the farmers are doing great again, but the government's controlling them. And what's sad is they still are to this day. Solving our problems the American way. The government is still heavily involved in agricultural prices and production. The ironic thing is that the farmer, who has long been the ultimate symbol of independence and self-support, is now heavily reliant on the government.
You know, I really admire your line of work. You're like the ultimate symbol of independence and standing on your own 2 feet. You really motivate me to do better in life.
I don't know. I'm just that good. Mr. Government, I need more money. Please, please, give. Be generous with your giving. I am worthy of your giving. I'd hate to be that guy. So, after the government stepped in around 1900, half the American labor force was in agriculture. Since then, the industry has been growing rapidly because of new technology. Trains with refrigerated rail cars created national markets for farm foods. Agricultural science developed seeds, fertilizer, and pesticides that increased yield. Computers and even satellites are used regularly in farming. Changes in how foods are processed, packaged, and distributed encourage agricultural production.
Whoa, you can't be positive here. This is supposed to be depressing.
Oh yeah. Family farms do still exist, but agriculture today is mostly characterized by large, efficient agribusiness operations. Family farms. Dump them! One issue the federal government is having has to do with ethanol. So ethanol is a grain alcohol produced by corn. We use it to replace foreign oils for gasoline, which cuts down on harmful emissions when fuel is burned. About 70% of gasoline sold in the US is blended with 10% ethanol. But the problem is that ethanol is expensive to make, which makes gas more expensive, and drives grain prices up because more grain is used for ethanol and less is used for food. So the federal government's dilemma that they're facing is whether or to what extent ethanol helps the US's energy position overall, and whether or not federal subsidies should continue. I have this dilemma. I have this grain, and I can use it to make ethanol, which makes it so people aren't poisoned every time they drive their car. But if I use it for that, I don't have enough to make good food. So I have a dilemma.
That is tough. Do whatever your heart tells you.
You're so right. I just had a thought. I know what I have to do. This is delicious.
Oh, you did the right thing. Oh,
What? No, you're not gonna die if there's no ethanol in the gas. The government just needs to stay out of our business. But anyway, the American farm is a part of our national ethics, symbolizing hard work, initiative, dependence on God, and the balance between independence and interdependence as a people. If God doesn't send the rain for our crops, there is nothing that all the scientists and masterminds in the whole world could do about it. I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, America's doomed, we're all gonna die, the whole system's gonna blow up in a pile of government and racism. But don't worry, Trump's almost in.
Boo the wolf!